Hello and welcome to the 1/160th of a second photography podcast, and it's episode 8, and episode 8 is called Photography and Videography. They're the same, right? More of a question really. So we're back today and we've got Ben with us today from episode 7. And Ben, for those people who haven't listened to episode 7, it was a great episode, but
yeah.
Can you just introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, my name's Ben. I'm a photographer and Photoshop editor / retoucher.
Very good. Did you used to have a background in videography?
I did. I started it in college all those years ago, and then went on to university and have been freelancing for the last 10 years doing it.
Very good. So today's episode is photography and videography. They're the same, right? And people might think that because a lot of people would use a DSLR for videography or a mirrorless camera for videography. And I suppose to the layperson, to the untrained eye, you could easily mistake one for the other. Someone might think, oh, you've got a big camera, as someone once said to me. You can do both, can't you? I'm not sure people really appreciate what goes into videography. So let's start this podcast by asking, what is videography?
Simply put, it is recording moving footage. That's the most basic description. Obviously, there is a lot more that goes into it than that.
So it's making video. I think that's a very good description. And it has a similar name to photography, but there are some key differences. I think one of the key differences is a photograph is still, and it is just the photograph. What goes into videography?
So as you say, photography is that one shot. Video is usually filmed at 24 or 25 frames a second, so you've got 25 shots per second that you need to be aware of. That's just for 1 second. Should the subject move or the camera move or anything else happen, then you need to be ready for all of those changes and all inevitabilities that may come out. So it is the same principles as photography, but it's a lot more. So it's a lot more on top of just setting it up and looking good in camera.
I think the biggest problem with it, because I used to do quite a lot of videography, I think the biggest problem with it is there's a lot more that can go wrong, and for some reason people have higher expectations of video than they do of photos. So people are quite critical of video where they wouldn't necessarily be of photos. Would you agree with that? I would agree with that. A lot of people see an image and they just scroll past. The video it'll draw you in, and you invest some time in watching that. So any flaws or anything worth critiquing will get critiqued. Whereas an image, they'll just click past it, look at the next one. Yeah, and I think the average person probably doesn't see themselves as a photographer, but because we have so much high quality video content, we're in England, in the UK, for our international listeners, and we've always had excellent TV, whether it's been imported from other countries or produced by English companies, UK companies like the BBC. I think we've always had phenomenal high quality TV that you never really spot any mistakes in. I've never seen any mistakes on live TV, maybe.
Yeah, live TV.
I've never looked at anything and go, oh, that's badly edited, or I think the lights are off there, or the white balance is wrong. I've never seen anything to criticise on TV, and I think maybe that's where it comes from. So, who does videography?
I think it's starting to be a lot. The term is getting a lot broader now. It used to be people doing actual filming, making films, commercials, but now especially with YouTube, it's so much more accessible for everyone, and the quality of footage you can even get just out of your phones. Every man and his dog can be a videographer now. People doing those pointless reaction videos or filming themselves playing computer games, will class themselves as videographers.
What's a reaction video?
It's basically a video of someone watching something. So they will film themselves watching a new trailer and filming themselves reacting, and then they put that on YouTube.
Before you explained that to me, I didn't know what you meant by pointless, or I can't remember whether you said pointless or silly, but I think that is completely pointless, because a reaction is spontaneous, and if you plan to capture it, it's not really spontaneous.
No, and why just watch whatever it is that needs to be watched? Why do I need to watch someone else watching something?
Yes.
What level of narcissism is it that, hey, I'm going to watch the new Avengers trailer, but I'm going to let people know what I think instead of just let them watch the trailer?
Or, I've just seen the Avengers trailer. Now I want to know what other people thought of it.
Yeah. It's not for me. I'm sure other people who do it love it. That's great, but it's not for me.
I think you've been really diplomatic there, so I thank you for that. I really don't. We have got off topic, but I think it's a good off topic. I don't like YouTube videos where people just stand there and talk to camera for 13 minutes. You might as well do a podcast. Is how I think of that. I know YouTube's more accessible.
There's one in the news recently. I don't know her name, but she calls herself an influencer because she's got X amount of followers on whatever social media. She tried blagging a free hotel in Dublin, and they said no. And then she's classed it as bullying and she's done like a 13-minute rant about why she's being bullied because she wasn't given a free hotel because people talk about just random stuff.
Well, it's been good. I've not seen it, but clearly it's been good publicity. Some publicity for the hotel, hasn't it?
The hotel they've responded in very funny fashion. They've sent her a bill. I can't remember what it's for, but it's for like €5 million for however much marketing that she gets from people watching her videos. And she says, and they make a note saying, disclaimer, video views and likes don't count towards payment. But they've been in the press before when they banned vegans from their hotel and vegan food. But they've got a massive social media following, and they know exactly what they're doing with it.
Sounds like it, yeah. And I guess they haven't just had the manager standing there talking for 15 minutes about something in front of a white wall. No,
not at all. They just sent her an email. She's kicked off about that, and then they've sent her the bill, and now she's kicking off again.
Fantastic. So this is January 2018 that we're recording this episode. We're sat in my car for somewhere quiet. It's January in England, so it's raining. It was snowing earlier. It's a thoroughly miserable day. But the reason I've talked about the date is because it's been Star Wars Episode 8 has been around for about a month, and there are so many videos about why people hate it, why people understand why people hate it, and why people think it's okay. And that does baffle me. It was a controversial Star Wars film, as controversial as they get for Star Wars, but I certainly wouldn't go out of my way to make a video about it. And the other thing is, sort of a technical difficulty as well. You have to show things from the Star Wars film without infringing copyrights, and I guess the only way people can do that is to show clips from the trailer. So you would have to record the trailer somehow,
which is most likely against
probably
any infringement rights.
Yeah, you'd have to record the trailer. In fact, showing any part of it's probably breaks the copyright. Record the trailer, record yourself, edit it together, just to express your view that you don't like it. That seems like an awful lot of time and effort to go to.
If you've got the right amount of followers and views, then you can monetize that video and make money off of Star Wars.
Well, to me, that is the dream job. Running a YouTube channel about Star Wars, but it's a crowded market.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I do watch YouTube videos about Star Wars. I haven't watched any about why people hate Star Wars Episode 8. Anyway, I'm probably getting off topic there.
I liked it. Certain bits they could have Nah, the whole layer. Oh, spoiler warning! The whole Leia doing her Mary Poppins impression, and Rose at the end pushing Finn out of the way just so she can steal a kiss and ruin his great big saviour moment.
Well, I thought that was quite funny. What I didn't like was that whole. I actually used this as the opportunity to go to the toilet. Was the bit on the gambling planet.
Oh yeah, what was that?
There was no point. There was no need to that. And two interesting things have happened. I've never had a spoiler alert in one of my podcast episodes before, so that's a new for me. And the second thing is I've criticised people making videos about what they did and didn't like about Star Wars, and I've done exactly the same.
Yeah,
so I'm a complete hypocrite in that respect.
Yeah, that bit on the gambling bit deserves it. Come
True.
across those. Don't save the slave kids. Save some horses, which, funnily enough, understand perfect English. Oh, we need to find some cover, so the horses run into a tunnel.
Not going to disagree with that. Let's get back to videography though, and I'm going to take the blame for pulling us off videography. That's my fault. You've got your man with an iPhone wants to do a little bit of videography. Where are the pitfalls going to be for them?
Flat. You can't change the depth of field. You can't really. You can zoom, but it's not great. You can get lens attachments for iPhones. I had some just cheap ones for a couple of phones ago, and yeah, they're okay. They're a gimmick. If you want to get into that, then it is a cheap alternative for getting a DSLR with different lenses. A lot of phones now, image quality can be as good as expensive DSLR cameras. The only problem is there's no interchangeable lenses.
I think that the key, I've recorded things on my iPhone, and I do a bit of videography, and the key thing for me is probably sound, and stabilizing that image. One of the key things I think if you're doing videography is to consider movement. So sweeping shots, shots where you move, shots where it's called a dolly shot. It's difficult to explain to a listener what a dolly shot is. When you sort of pan from left to right ever so slightly, rather than turning it, you just move your camera sideways to give a nice movement, or up and down. And getting those sort of things in will really transform videography, but you don't want it shaky when you're walking and stuff.
No, human hand is not stable when moving. You can have the most steady hand in the world, but as soon as you've got a camera and you start moving, then it's going to be jerky and jumpy. You can buy stabilizers and like gimbals for cameras. You can use them for phones as well, but if you're going to be doing that, you might as well just get a camera if you're buying all that extra equipment.
Well, there's a cheap option. You can put it on a tripod.
Yeah, you can.
Or you can. I mean, we're recording this with a microphone on a small tripod. You can get
Gorilla Pods.
A Gorilla Pod type thing. You can get a £10 microphone a lavalier microphone that you stick into your iPhone that has three pins rather than two, or one actually for most microphones. And that works with your iPhone, and that will drastically in fact, those two things, sticking it on a tripod and getting an external microphone, will drastically improve anything you make with your iPhone. Let's talk about bloke with a reasonably good camera. So by that I mean a non-smartphone camera. What his pitfall is going to be. In fact, I've said bloke, how sexist. Person with a reasonably good interchangeable lens camera. What are their pitfalls going to be, and how can they overcome them? Are they the same as with the iPhone?
They're not the same as the iPhone. A lot of people I found buy the camera, buy loads of kit, and think that's going to make them a good photographer / videographer. They won't practice, they may not study, and then the camera just sits there gathering dust, and they'll sell it and buy their next gimmick. If you're buying a camera for the purpose of videography with X amount of lenses and equipment, then it is an investment, and you not only need to invest money in it, but also substantial time to learn what to actually do with it.
I think light is a key thing as well. With your iPhone or your camera, if you're filming outside, you're okay. It's going to be bright, and
well, it's not today, is it?
Today we're struggling to see out of the car, in all honesty. No, today I think you'd be alright. Yeah, I mean, when you film at double the frame rate. So in the UK, the frame rate is generally 25 frames per second. In other countries, it's 30 frames per second. So you would film at 1/50th of a second or 1/60th of a second. If you're doing more frames to get slow motion, so if you're doing 60 frames per second, you would film at 1/20th of a second as your shutter speed. So you double it. There's a rule that tells you to double it. I couldn't explain why, and I'm not going to. So at those high shutter, to me that's a high shutter speed, and that lets in a lot of light. So you're fine outside, but when you film anything inside, you really need to get a light, and turning the light on isn't always enough, is it?
No, indoor lights, regardless of how they look to your eye on camera, have like a not horrible nasty yellow/orange glow to them, and the light source is always above, so it's just going to be causing nasty orange shadows on your subject.
I also think they don't produce enough light.
No.
You need to go overboard with light from what your eye is telling you is correct, for it to look good on camera.
Yeah, definitely. Always better to have too much than not enough.
Yeah, you can always turn your aperture up, I think. So, bloke with a video camera, sorry, not a video camera, bloke with an interchangeable...
Person with a camera.
Sorry. Person with an interchangeable lens camera, not a video camera or anything. What sort of... We've talked about the pitfalls, and that's going to be light, and that's going to be essentially training to get to know what to do. That rule I talked about, I suppose, comes into the training. So what are the easy things to overcome the pitfalls?
Just practice and tutorials. Think of an idea of what you want to do, try and do it yourself. If you can't, look online for someone else's expertise.
I would say film in front of a window is probably the cheap option to get more light, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever you're filming, if it's a person, film it in front of a window. Maybe get some cheap LED lights, or put some lamps on or something.
Yeah, you can get some good LED panel lights, relatively cheap, £20 on eBay, and they've got, the ones I've used before have got a dimmer switch on the back, so you can control the lighting. It's not just going to flood them with a glare of white light.
And the other, I'd still go back to sound. The microphone you'll get on a camera will probably be much worse than the one on the smartphone, in all honesty. So investing in a £10 microphone again will pay dividends, because I think sound is something people will put up with, maybe shaky footage or not very good footage, but sound people are quite unhappy with.
Yeah, even if you, as you said before, just get a microphone that you even just plug into your iPhone and then record the audio separately. And yeah, you'll have to sync it up in whatever your editing program is, but at least you've got footage on camera, the audio on camera, and a much better quality backup on the phone as well.
I think as well, there's considering editing as well. What is the point of a 40-minute video of someone on holiday? Or you sometimes watch videos people have made, and they're just, each scene is maybe a bit too long.
Yeah,
that's the nicest way to put it. I think things have to be short and snappy, don't they? Particularly in the internet age.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Most people switch off within the first minute if they're not interested.
So let's talk about the overlap with photography. I suppose you do a lot more, don't you, when you do videography? You do sound, you do lighting, there's so many more things, like I said at the start, so many more things that can go wrong. You do so many more things, and you might have people whose specific job is to do those things, but there are still principles that overlap with photography. One is getting the light right, one is getting the depth of field right, and composing the image, I would say, has a definite overlap with photography. What are your thoughts on what overlaps with photography?
No, that's I think that sums it up. It's
it's the same principles from photography, just transferred into a much longer shot. If you want, it's the principles of a photograph just expanded. If you're going to do it, practice the shot. Obviously, you're having rehearsals. Like with photography, you can just take 100 images until you get the right one. With videography, yes, it's more time consuming, but you can just practice and practice until you get it right.
And let's talk about, should photographers experiment with videography? I think photographers should experiment with anything they can. If you've invested money in a camera, you might as well have a go at that movie mode on it.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely.
I definitely advise getting off auto movie mode. Always, if you've got a camera that can do things manually, do things manually. Definitely in video.
Yeah, I rarely put it on auto.
Of course, your iPhone sort of is auto unless you use something like Filmic Pro. But yeah, definitely get it off manual. Set the ISO, set the shutter speed, and then set the aperture to brighten or darken, really, or maybe the ISO. But yeah, get it off auto. And actually, cameras have got better at taking automatic pictures, but movies, they're just dreadful at automatic.
No, yeah, it's I think with movies, especially with DSLRs, they're not really designed to go automatic with movie mode. It's because there's just so many different things that you need to, like constant changes of light and motion. It's best to put those in practice, well, plan those yourself and come up with the counters to a sudden harsh light or sudden movement.
The other thing is, if you do have automatic movie or use your iPhone, it's probably going to be in 30 frames per second, which is fine if you live in America or New Zealand. But in the UK, there's a reason things are 25 frames per second in the UK, and that's because our electricity runs at 50 hertz. So our lights will flicker 50 times per second. So if you're recording, it's getting quite technical now, if you're recording at 30 frames per second, you'll be able to see lights flicker. It wouldn't matter in a photo, but in a video segment, I think could be quite off-putting to the viewer, that sort of light flickering.
Oh, definitely, and that's not something that's easily fixed in editing unless you know what you're doing. And there's nothing worse than filming something and it looking good, and then when you get back to editing, there's the flicker of light, and then you just go, oh god, what can I do?
Well, very little.
Yeah,
very little. Yeah, so many pitfalls. I definitely think photographers should experiment in videography. And there are halfway houses, actually. There are those still images that move that you can do on Instagram or put on the web.
Yep.
I'm not talking about GIFs. I don't know what is it, cinemagraphs?
Yeah, I've seen them. I've got an example on my phone of one if you want to see it.
They're quite easy to do. Just you keep everything like a photo, but one thing moves. It's how I would describe a cinemagraph. So that's a good example I was thinking of. Ben is showing me a picture of a lady, and everything in the photo is still, but the hair is moving.
I didn't do that myself. That was done by someone else. That's of my lovely fiance.
Oh, you could have got away with not mentioning that, and I would have thought you had done it. The other thing, it's probably a little tip from me, is put your phone in flight mode unless you're, in fact, even if you're recording, put it in flight mode. If you're recording on your phone, put it in flight mode. If you're recording on another camera, put it in flight mode. Reason being, you will get that horrible occasionally when someone rings you or you get an update from your network.
Does that still come through? I haven't had that for a while, not since filming on DV tapes. Used to get it quite a lot then, but I haven't come across that in a while. Is that still an issue?
It's happened to me. That was some years ago, but it has happened to me. So I always put my phone in flight mode. Yeah, just me. Who knows? Right. Any other thoughts on? Do you think photographers should experiment with video?
Just get out there and do it. Even if videography isn't something that you want to get into like long term, it will give you a newer understanding of your camera's functionality and possibly even the way you compose a shot and the way you plan it as well. So that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't worry about 4K. If your camera doesn't have 4K, I really wouldn't worry about it. 720 is acceptable. 1080 is fine. There's a big 4K push, but the problem with 4K is you've got to basically upgrade your computer. It's so much more intensive on all the editing you do, and it takes twice as long. Have you edited 4K?
I have. I've edited some 4K drone footage. My editing program can do it to 8K as well, but that just pretty much blows my computer up. And you got to think, who's going to be watching it on 4K? So if it's just going to be for YouTube, then why bother? It's just going to drag out the process and strain your processor. So 1080p is more than standard, more than acceptable.
I think the only advantage for YouTube is if you record at 4K and then export it at 1080, you do get a slightly sharper image, but no one's going to not watch it because you haven't recorded it in 4K.
No, not at all.
No one's going to refuse to watch your stuff because you haven't 4K'd it. Right, I think we're going to finish there. So perhaps in the comments let us know if you've experimented with videography, or if you generally agreed with us, with the caveat of nothing about Star Wars. So you've been listening to the 160th podcast, episode 8, all about photography, with myself and Ben, and we'll see you in our next episode. Goodbye.